Hey Jason, let's just get started here. I started the stream, so if you just want to say something, I'm gonna make sure the sound from your end is coming through to the stream.
Greetings and salutations once again.
Just give me a second. I'm gonna hear if it comes through on the stream. Hey Jason, let's just get started here. I started the stream, so if you just want to say something, I'm gonna make sure the sound from your end is coming through to the stream.
Testing, testing, testing.
Perfect. Everything's working as expected.
Beautiful.
So we can get started. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction into what we do, we're a student nonprofit organization across London universities, and our main objective is to provide education on blockchain, but also sort of practical exposure for all our members.
Sure, of
So
course.
I work in the business development and marketing team, and so I reached out to Gala Games and got connected with Carrie, who connected me with you, and now we're here. If you could just give us a short introduction of who you are and maybe a little bit about what you do at Gala Games, and we'll get into our first questions.
Sure. So, excuse me, I got a little bit of cough here. My name is Jason Brink. A lot of people in the space know me as Bitbender. I've been in the blockchain space since about 2012. My first major leap in with 2 feet was working to create a blockchain project that was designed specifically to fix some of the problems endemic to foreign aid. I spent some time in Haiti post earthquake doing some work there and saw a lot of problems with corruption and whatnot. And so I wanted to find a way to do something to fix that. And I ended up winning an award from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Global Development Network for the work that I was doing in the space at the time. But I found working with NGOs and governments was just too slow to accomplish what I really wanted to do. So I started to look at other ways to, fix sort of the problem of making sure that there was money getting to the hands of those who needed it the most. And gaming was an interesting way to achieve that goal. So I started working with Gala Games. I was one of the first employees and kind of a little bit of a co-founder, since I actually knew both of the founders and had discussed the idea with them, but regrettably didn't make it on the flight when the actual deal was papered. So had to kind of come in a little bit later. Um, but we focus on creating robust economies and game experiences that allow people to have actual ownership of their in-game assets and potentially earn something through playing as well. And as the well, backing up a little bit, my actual title is Barbarian Path of the Berserker because we have a no corporate bullshit attitude at Gala.
Right.
But from the external world, I am the president of blockchain, and I just kind of do do a lot of things from feeding into economies and how things are supposed to work to business development to connecting with external partners to going on stage and talking to people and doing AMAs and interviews and things like this. So
That's awesome. I did see the Barbarian Path of Berserker, and I was going to ask about that, but you answered my question. And I guess a little bit of your answer did sort of lean in to our first question. And that was, could you tell us what the Gala Games vision is, which you have a little bit, but also how far you have gotten in accomplishing that vision? Is there still room to grow and things to achieve?
sure, of course. Our vision is to be the respected global leader in Web3 entertainment across all verticals and a positive force for change in the world. And obviously, there's always room to grow and always room to do better and always room to take on more and bigger and harder challenges and things like that. But that said, we've done quite well in positioning ourselves. There really isn't anyone in the blockchain space doing blockchain gaming who can really come close to what we have accomplished. We've got 28 AAA games in development right now, all on their way to the platform. We've got 400 people that work with us, and we're growing constantly and scaling constantly. We're expanding rapidly into film and music. And yeah, we're jumping in really with both feet. So that's a little bit of who we are and what we do.
Yeah, you said 28 games. I wasn't aware that it was that many. Is there any like
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, is there any like common design philosophies that might be present in all those games? I know you guys do very different genres and a lot of different
Yeah, the whole idea is that we want to have games across all major genres that people want to play. So if there is a game type that you're very interested in playing, and that has a good following, we're working on finding a game to fit that niche.
nice. Do you mind giving us a basic rundown and maybe some of the most popular games you have in development or maybe that are already released? Some of my
Sure.
personal
So
favorites are Grit and Mirandus, but maybe some other ones as well.
sure, yeah, Grit and Mirandus are absolutely awesome. Spider Tanks is really cool. There's another game that was announced in partnership with Joy City at Galaverse. We just had Galaverse in Malta, um, and that was absolutely epic. And I believe we had 9 different games that were playable demos for people at Galaverse, including Mirandus and Spider Tanks. There was some new stuff there. The Walking Dead Empires. Uh, I believe I think we had last expedition. I think we did maybe. Epic stuff though. Really, really, really cool games. I'm extremely excited about all of them. Really.
Do you want to give us just a basic summary of maybe each of those that you mentioned? So maybe like a one sentence summary of what Mirandus is, Spider Tanks.
Sure, sure, sure. So Mirandus is a MMORPG where you basically you go into the world, and it's an open world, and you explore and quest and craft, and I mean you do all of that. Spider Tanks is a 3v3 MOBA experience. So it's a light MOBA brawler. Super, super, super insanely fun. Grit is a battle royale. It's kind of like an interesting cross between PUBG and Red Dead Redemption. Last Expedition is a PvP PvE first person shooter that is insanely, insanely hard, but very, very, very fun. Which other ones did I mention? The Walking Dead Empires is sort of a little bit of I almost call it isometric RPG, where you explore and craft, and have your little world where you fight zombies. I mean walkers. Sorry, my bad. Definitely walkers. Um, yeah, so that's we've got so much going on. We announced a Space 4X with Battlestar Galactica. We have another Space 4X that is Echoes of Empire. Just so much amazing stuff is coming right now, and I really can't wait.
Yeah, versus a lot of other game studios, you guys have a lot of projects being developed at once. Is there a
Yeah.
philosophy behind that?
Well, we're not. We're more of, think of us as a publisher slash platform rather than a studio.
Right.
So a lot of what you see in the blockchain space is you see like a small group of developers making one game, okay, which is cool. More power to them. We're approaching this much more from a ecosystem wide platform play. So for us, it's not just about one game. It's about creating a tool set and a pipeline to allow thousands of developers to come bring their games to our platform. Think of us kind of like blockchain Steam.
Okay, so then with all these games on your platform, how
Yeah.
important is interoperability, right? Traditional gaming doesn't really have any sort of interoperability between games, so it's not necessarily a must, but you know, is it
So
important?
so I'm gonna say some kind of unpopular stuff here,
Let's hear it.
and I apologize for that. Um, people like to talk about interoperability. Um, but the people that like to talk about interoperability are generally speaking not game developers.
Right.
From the average game developer's perspective, there really isn't any point in interoperability. Now, from a blockchain, metaverse type perspective, where you have, somebody's like, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to have my metaverse, and then I'm going to drive my DeLorean that's going to have all my Back to the Future stuff, and then I'm going to drive it up the ramp and park it in the Millennium Falcon. It's going to be super cool, and all of these assets are interoperable. Yay! Um, the reality is that IP restrictions on basically all of that stuff makes it impossible. So if you have, pick a big piece of IP, and we work with a lot of major IP, right? So we're working with, the Walking Dead IP. We're working with Battlestar Galactica. We've got a whole bunch of other stuff we haven't even announced yet that are pretty major IPs. For each of those, okay, the entity that owns that IP has to give specific permission for things to be shown in context with anything else. So, for example, you couldn't have a walker, okay, from The Walking Dead, put inside, say, Mario, because that would take that walker out of context, and AMC would not like that. Therefore, they would not approve that placement. So this is like an interesting thing, because while so much of the blockchain industry loves the idea of interoperability, okay, and I do too. From a realistic perspective, most game developers aren't very interested in it because it hurt it in best case for them is a user acquisition strategy. So we'll give this particular thing utility within our game so that we can bring over people who own that thing, right? So for example, we could make it so that in Townstar you could place a crypto kitty. Okay. Now we could totally do that, and that might be a great strategy to bring in additional users. However, we could also, if we were to try to do that with something else, it actually degrades the revenue of the first game. Because if you're giving something from another game utility in your game, that means you don't have that thing in your game natively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, this is a really interesting perspective, and you're right that it might be quite unpopular because this is the entire narrative in blockchain right now, isn't it? Like interoperability.
It is, and I love the idea of interoperability. I mean, I love the idea of chains and bridges. I mean, God, this is what we build. But when it comes to actual NFTs in a game, okay, okay, take the other side, right? The Bored Ape Yacht Club metaverse thing, right? Mm-hmm. Placing an asset in that game requires that asset exist in that game. Okay, so it has to be programmed in. Now, you can have quote unquote metaverses like Decentraland or Crypto Voxels or whatever, where you can kind of just import whatever, right? But it doesn't actually look right, correct?
Yeah.
Like you can import a Vox into Decentraland, but now the entire Vox is in Decentraland rendering, and it's just not quite the same.
Yeah, Decentraland is not the most insane experience to be a part of. If we're being quite frank,
correct,
in my opinion.
Correct. And so if you take something that is really, really good looking, okay, importing that character in means that you have to have that character, you have to have the materials, you have to have all of the ray tracing in there for it, you have to have all of this stuff that there's just from a game developer's perspective, there's a massive technical lift just to bring in that one object, let alone a series of 10,000 of them or whatever. So we it's talked about a lot by people who don't actually understand the technical side of it, which is a little bit frustrating sometimes, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean this is potentially an issue for a lot of this, blockchain gaming stuff being quite theoretical at this point. We haven't seen that many promises come into fruition. So, you
Sure,
know,
sure. I mean, this is one of the things that I think sets us apart. Is like we had 9 different games at Galaverse that people could play. Like 9 games that are very quickly approaching completion. We're taking it beyond theory, but sometimes that means we have to challenge some of the narrative that other people have made in the space.
yeah, and I mean,
Because
sorry.
no, I was just going to say, I mean, you have to challenge that narrative because it just simply doesn't align very well with reality in some ways.
Yeah, we see a lot of companies sell coins and NFTs for games that don't even have pre-alphas, games that are not
Yeah.
even close to playable. And that's a big issue for
Yep.
the reputation of the space, right? Because
Oh, it's massive, man. I hate it um, every time I see like somebody do another pre-sale for a game that doesn't exist or release my favorite thing that they do, which always cracks me up, is when they have like a game that's got like 3 or 4 years of development roadmap in front of it, and then they release a fully fleshed out economic model to sell their token, and you're like, come on, guys, like you've not collected any actual data on what players are going to do in your game. How can you release an economics model? You know, that always cracks me up.
yeah, I mean, I think economics model, that's some that gets included in some of our other questions. So maybe let's move on. Just as a general
Sure.
question for maybe someone who isn't that aware of exactly what blockchain gaming is, maybe some of our community members who are more on the gaming side of things, how will
Mhm.
gamers be enabled in new ways through the advent of in-game assets being owned as NFTs? And what is play to earn, and how does that always have to tie into NFTs, or are they, potentially can they be exclusive from each other?
No, they could absolutely be exclusive from one another. I mean, um, when you have a right now we're at this kind of awesome stage of development, where almost anything is possible. Okay, so you could have an economy that's based on NFTs. You could have an economy that's not based on NFTs. You could have basically whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, this is one of the favorite things, favorite conversations I have sometimes with some of our developers. When I ask them a question, I'm like, well, is it possible to do A, B, or C? Sort of thing. And their answer is always, well, yes, anything is possible. We can do anything. It's just, do we want to take the time to build it that way? So for me though, the thing that I think is really important is this concept of player ownership of assets, right? Everyone's purchased things in games, right? And then at the end of the day, you've put that in there, and you've put the money in, and you're going to get what out of it, right? What we do is we allow you actually to own your NFTs, to improve your NFTs, to upgrade, and for in spider tanks, for example, to upgrade and level up your tank, and you get to a point where you can do whatever you want with that. You can gift it to a friend, you can sell it, you can lock it up and look at it in years. It's entirely up to you. And so for us, it's all about increasing player freedom. Um, Super, super, super important for us in that regard.
So, with many play to earn systems having substantially declined over the last months, I don't know if you've seen that, but could you tell us a little bit about what a sustainable play to earn system looks like, and potentially one that could function over 5 to 10 years, and potentially one that is also resistant to changes in the market, not immune, but perhaps resistant, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important to note that that there's the market is going to do what the market does. Okay, and value of things will go up and value of things will go down, and that's just sort of the way it is. But the idea with the play to earn ecosystem is that you want to build it in such a way that you have an emission rate, okay, that is similar to the way that Bitcoin has been emitted, in that there's always less and less of it coming out up until it reaches a sort of maximum cap, okay, and then from there, the amount that gets released, okay, is the amount that gets input and burned in the ecosystem. Okay, so you don't want to have something that, this is a problem with Axie, this is a problem with Town to a certain extent. You don't want to have something where players perform an action, okay, and then they get something for that action, which enables them to get more NFTs to place and to get more to perform other actions, to get more token, to get more NFTs. That you have this cycle where it sort of runs away, right? You don't want that. So what you do is you want to build things out in such a way that it makes it extremely limited, and so you don't end up with those runaway inflationary problems, and you have instead something that is a little bit more robust. You also want to build it in such a way that there are various triggers that pull, and when certain conditions are reached, that adjust your emission rate, so that you have a means of making sure that your economy stays healthy. Things like that.
And you know, the where is the economic value inherently generated? Is it from new players coming in and wanting to invest to play that game and keeping their investments in, or you know
That's certainly part of it. I think though the number one thing that you have to remember, okay, with games, period. Okay, let's set aside the concept of play to earn for a while.
right,
Why do you play games?
because they're fun?
You play games because they're fun. As long as you build a game that is fun, okay, that is legitimately fun, people will play that game. When they play that game, they're putting energy into the ecosystem. Okay, now you you live in London, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay. Um, you go to a local coffee shop, like Starbucks or something.
sure, yeah, Costa Coffee.
Yeah, awesome. Constant coffee, right? So that what's a cup of coffee cost?
Let's say £3.
Two, £3. There you go. Hold on one second. James is doing a thing. Uh,
No worries.
sorry. Um, so your coffee's £3, right?
Right.
Now, for you, if you play a game and you're getting 50p a day, right? Is this compelling to you from an economic incentive perspective?
I mean, I play games for free now, so sure.
You play games for free. Of course, you play games for free. But here's the thing: is that, well, here, put it this way: if you and I are hanging out, okay, and I say, "Hey, man, can you come over to my place and help me move a couch?" Okay, you're gonna say, "Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to," because I'm a friend. I'm asking for your help, right? But if I'm like, "Hey, man, can you come over and help me move a couch? I'll pay you 50p." You're gonna say, "Go to hell! What the hell? That's ridiculous. That's not enough money to make me do anything." And the reality is that for you in the developed world, that's not enough money to make you do anything. You're not going to play a boring game to get 50p no matter what you do,
Yeah.
right? Like you're not going to. If it's boring, it is a waste of your time, and you want nothing to do with it. Okay, now that's your reality. So for you, play to earn gaming in a robust ecosystem by itself, the earning component is not enough of an economic incentive to make you actually want to play that game. However, there are other people in the world for which that could make a huge difference. A couple pounds a week in some countries can make the difference between feeding your family and not feeding your family. That suddenly becomes a very different setup, yeah? And so the way that you build a robust economy is you set it up so that the people who want to play because it's fun can play because it's fun, can maybe get something, but honestly probably aren't going to bother much with the earning component because they're too busy having fun. They'll put money into the game, they'll buy stuff because they want to win, and it's sort of the free to play gaming loop again, right?
Right.
But those who really need it have the ability to take a little bit out because it's what they need to live. And so that's part of this is it's not just about building, an economy that is that everybody makes money. That's not how economies work. What you build something that allows some people to feed energy in, some people to take energy out, and create a sustainable long-term cycle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really, really interesting perspective. So what this kind of ties into your humanitarian stuff that you did before
Hmm.
Gala Games. So you're
Of
basically
course, man. I
saying
mean,
for the average person in maybe the Western world, it's just going to be for fun. But you're saying in countries where potentially a little amount of money means more, those people can actually get a true sort of economic value from playing the game.
yeah. And I mean, it's not that there isn't a profit motive, if you will, for people in the developed world. It's just that it's not the you know, couple pounds a week for you that's going to make the difference. Now, you may put in tons of hours and upgrade your tank so that it's a perfectly upgraded level 30 thing that you have like spent time on. Now, that could have a ton of value for you. Okay? But it's not going to be like the daily grind, if you will, is not going to be what gets you there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really really interesting stuff, and I'm not sure if I've sort of heard this perspective that much in the space. I've been
Probably not. There are very few people in the space who actually have sat down and thought about exactly what the hell a play to earn economy actually means. Everybody's like, yeah, we're gonna play games and make money, and that's it. But there's deep economic forces at play that you have to recognize, and if you don't, then it's not gonna work.
That's really really interesting. So we have some people watching. We can circle back to this topic certainly in the questions. We're gonna
Sure.
have about a 30-minute window for people to rather 20-minute window for people to ask questions at the end, either through chat in Discord or directly through the spaces. But let's just move on to a slightly different tangent.
Sure,
Your
man.
average game, you're having to spend a crazy amount of money to get it developed because it just takes so many hours, so many people to build an actually
Yeah.
good game, right? How does
Yep.
NFT and crypto driven fundraising change the dynamics of game development? You've seen all these companies sell tons of NFTs, tons of coins to before they even have any sort of product. Now they have a lot of money to actually make a game. So how does that actually change?
They had a lot of money to make a game, and
Right.
then the last few days happened. Um, yeah, so I'm going to say to a certain extent, I don't know. That's not how we do it. It is how a lot of people do it. I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. I see a lot of fundraisers via it's almost like using NFTs as like a Kickstarter sort of thing. But the problem is that most people who are out there making blockchain games are not actually game producers. They don't actually know how to make games. They're They're crypto people and they have like a idea for a GameFi sort of economy. But then when it comes to the actual game side of things, um, they're a little bit less together with it, if that makes sense. So what we do is we fund all of our development up front. And all of these 28 games that you hear about have been funded already. Okay, these are not things that we're waiting to do a pre-sale to fund. Like they've already been funded. We've cut them checks. They're already building. And if we do pre-sales later, it's more about doing something to serve the community and give them access to something that will basically give them other opportunities going forward as the game grows.
Do you think there's
That makes
potential
sense.
that that crypto NFT sort of Kickstarter thing wasn't actually the purpose of incorporating crypto and NFTs into gaming, and perhaps a lot of these companies that have used it for that Kickstarter purpose are actually going to be sort of flushed out from the space?
I think a lot of them are going to. I mean, I think that NFTs in general, okay, are the latest incarnation of the well known crypto fad. Okay, for 2016, 2017, it was ICOs. Everyone was doing ICOs for everything. And it was, you would have people, they'd be like, oh, okay, I got this. I'm going to write a white paper. It's going to be about A, B, and C. Here's some ideas, throw some jargon at it, post that stuff on Bitcoin Talk, and boom, take in 15, $20 million, whatever it happens to be. And then we'll figure out how to build it, was the way that people would look at things. And they would do that. And obviously, when crypto winter happened, most of those companies, died. My freaking wallet is filled with dozens and dozens of dead tokens that I put something into in an ICO, and then they just ended up going absolutely nowhere. So I think you're going to see a lot of that as well, with the sort of NFT side of things. Um, and some of these games as well. Like I've seen people, selling stuff for games that I'm pretty positive will never ever be built because what they're proposing is either so ambitious that it would take a. I mean, these big game teams, like some of the teams that we have. These are not internal teams; these are external teams. They'll have like 90 to 100 people working on a game. you know and that's not something that you're going to be able to do with a small group of people and a one website that has a 10 seconds of footage of unreal assets or whatever.
Right. So that's quite compelling that you said all Gala Games have already been fundraised for. So that sort of means that this
No, not fundraised for. We paid for them.
pay for
We
them.
didn't
Sorry.
raise shit. We raised, or no, we didn't raise anything. We've never taken external investment whatsoever.
Sorry for the misuse of words, but that actually means that your the roadmap of Gala Games hasn't been affected at all by this bearish market sentiment that
Yeah,
we're
not at all. Of course not. Of course not.
that's very, very
Changes nothing.
compelling. Do you think that there's, I think we'll see games of a lot of different genres incorporate blockchain technology, and of course, you guys are making games of various different genres. Is there a game genre that you think specifically is this sort of the most ripe for incorporating NFTs and potentially play to earn? Is it perhaps MMOs or MOBAs where the visual things matter a lot? Is there a specific genre, do you think, or do you think all genres are gonna sort of
I think most genres are well suited to a certain extent. Um, yeah, that's what I would say.
right?
I think there's a whole lot of really 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 cool stuff that can be done in pretty much any type of game.
And my next question is: we have lots of sort of centralized companies. The famous one being Facebook announcing. It's not the same thing as blockchain gaming, but they're certainly announcing a metaverse, and there's a lot of talk that they will incorporate NFTs. Can you
Mhm.
highlight some of the key advantages of having games that incorporate blockchain being decentralized from the bottom up, like Gala Games? So like Gala Games from the bottom up is decentralized. Facebook is a centralized company that might have a slightly decentralized metaverse. What's the main advantage of having it all be decentralized from the bottom up like it is with Gala Games?
I don't think that they're going to have a decentralized metaverse at all. I think they're going to have a very centralized metaverse.
It's going to be a closed
Um,
system. No.
it's going to be an entirely closed system, would be my guess. I think that you may be able to bring in some outside assets. Excuse me. You may be able to bring in some outside assets, but generally speaking, it's going to be a walled garden.
And why is that bad,
Um,
right? Just for the person who doesn't know why.
well, it's not necessarily bad. It's what it essentially boils down to is how much control do people want and how much risk are they willing to take. Okay, that's the central thing that this boils down to. So, for example, um, excuse me, you have a bank account, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you have a bank account and you lose access to your online banking password or whatever, you go to the branch and you tell them, "Hey, I lost access to this," and they hook you up, right?
Yeah, they'll figure
They
out how to
verify
do it.
your identity and all of these things. Now, obviously, in the blockchain space, that's not really something you can do, right? But if you have a fully centralized thing like Facebook's thing, it will probably provide an easier onboarding experience for the average person um, than having something totally decentralized because they're used to it. Okay, now we're working on integrating single sign-on and third-party custodial wallets and things like that to kind of bring in as much of that experience as possible. The with Grit being placed in the Epic Store, that is going to enable 194 million Epic users to log into the Gala platform with their Epic account. So it's a matter of reducing friction. Now, these centralized solutions, it's much easier to reduce friction because you already have kind of a captive audience, right? From a decentralized perspective, it tends to be much higher friction simply due to the fact that you have, all of these different layers that have to be transacted, um, and you have to maintain control of all of your own access and whatnot. So I think that well, I don't like the way that Meta is doing things. It will be a lot easier for a lot of people. The key, though, is to help them bridge from that experience to a more decentralized experience.
Awesome. And I think we'll move on to some of the our community's questions, but just as a last sort of
Sure.
capping question to everything, do you have any predictions for maybe what we can expect from the blockchain gaming space and maybe Gala specifically within the next few years?
Oh, you're going to see a lot of games from us. You're going to see a lot of games. You're also going to see a lot of integration across music and film. So, as well as some very interesting new things and utilities for the Gala token and all of these things. So there's a lot going on.
Can you maybe just give a brief summary as to how you guys want to integrate into film and music?
I could, but basically what we're doing is we're integrating a watch to earn and a listen to earn component where you are helping to, excuse me, support artists and creators, but at the same time, with both film and music, what you as the end user does can impact a lot of other things across the platform. So you'll have to wait and see for more information to be released there.
Okay, we will definitely wait and see. Does anyone in the spaces currently have any questions they would like to ask? I do have a couple questions from the Discord chat directly. If anyone has any questions, just request to speak. No problem. We did get a few questions just over chat. One question was, do you think there are a lot of career opportunities in the blockchain gaming industry?
Massive, tons, so many. We're hiring constantly.
Another question from LBO Juxa says, I'll just read the question out entirely, and you did partly answer it, but potentially maybe just a different take. Do you think play to earn ever will ever be able to have sustainable economies? Valve has already had a sustainable digital economy. For example, a community vote to get artists skins in games, as well as pay popular map makers by selling stickers that allow the community to support creators. Do you see it steer away and more into a side creator game economy?
I don't know that what you described for Valve with stickers and skins and stuff is really a sustainable digital economy. Um, Personally, my experiences with Valve and the things in the Steam store and all of that, um, I have Steam points coming out of my freaking ears, and I can't ever find a thing to spend them on. Um, so I don't know that I would call that a sustainable economy. I mean, I guess it sustains itself. But then nobody's using those points for anything. Nobody's really doing anything with them, and at the end of the day, you're just selling a few skins. Um, an economy has movement in all directions,
Yeah, perhaps
and I
side.
think that's critically a thing that's missed. Um, I think that creator economies are very, very cool. That said, uh, there's always been a problem with creators creating things. Oh my God, excuse me. Problem with creators creating things that do not match the standard of the game in which they're placed. And anyone who's spent any time looking at Second Life or anything like that knows that sometimes users make some pretty weird stuff, um, and that can break immersion in a game. So there's definitely room for it. It just has to be in the right place.
Yeah, perhaps what Valve has is just simply not encompassing enough to call it.
Yeah, it's very light. It's a super light touch.
Yeah, exactly. And with what we're talking about here, I mean, this is uh, you know, incorporating a play to earn from the bottom up, like the way the game is driven, the way
Right.
actual resources to play the game are handed to people. So it's a little bit
Yep.
different, I think, to what Valve has, which is like, small skins that just simply, don't actually affect the real game itself, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, I mean, I think that's actually all we have for you, Jason. But we massively,
Okay.
massively appreciate you giving us this time. You've said some really, really interesting takes, and hopefully enough people hear them because I think where you come from is a very sort of logical and informed point of view, and potentially that's a little bit lacking in this space. And I don't think it will be for very long. I think a lot of this crap that we've seen, frankly, over the past year, I think that's gonna a little bit go to the side, and I think the projects that actually are building something worthwhile are gonna only be on the rise from now, in my opinion, at least.
I I fully agree. I fully agree.
So yeah, thank you so much, and really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. You have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you all soon.
Have a good one. Bye.